Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science, Sattology means science of truth, a study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which is a science of myth, or myth means Sanskrit is fake lie imagination, or mythology means science or study of fake lie imagination. Anything as per Bhagavad-gita or which fits the logic of Bhagavad-gita is Sattology. Anything which is outside is mythology. But anyway, I have very, very special guest, a researcher, Swami, Rishi, Muni, and Tapasvi. And also he does a lot of interesting Facebook posts. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Nilesh Oak.
Namaskar Aditya ji. Welcome. Good morning. And a quick word on Facebook, since you mentioned it. As I will repeat it, that I have found very genuine, very intelligent volunteers. So of course they do it. There are 4 of them total. They split their time between Twitter and Facebook. So they are managing it, and they're managing it responsibly. Right now, we just started this pilot. So they asked me many times if this is okay. But I told them not to ask me 80% of the time, 80-20, the Pareto principle. And of course, I have access and I go there, and once in a while I do post. But I wanted to do this experiment to actually create more folks, who can think mature in a mature fashion, a humorous fashion, entertaining fashion, educational fashion, enlightening, and with the intention of enlightening the audience, creating social experiments. So I have those folks now very active on both Twitter and Facebook. And there are requests that I receive that I should be on a Telegraph or Telegram. I don't know even what it is, another platform, and Instagram. And I have not thought about it. I did open an account on Instagram. And if this pilot works out, at least I'll do this for 6 months plus, then we might expand. Back to you. Thank you.
Good point. So do follow Nilesh Oak on multiple social media platforms, and he will answer if there is an interesting point you make. Your patrata is always important. So if you maintain, then I think you will get a response. Same as with me. If you want to ask me genuine question, I'll definitely answer. We are everywhere: Telegram, social media, Twitter. Now coming to the main points now, people who actually on the path of yoga, amongst themselves, they fight more than against those whom they should actually fight. Like the biggest Mayavadi so far, the people who don't believe in truth or reality are the Mayavadi. Maya means which does not exist, means all the fake propaganda. Instead of fighting against them, they fight amongst themselves more. What is the reason according to you?
Well, you said
you and I have gone through a lot, so we know that.
Correct. Well, you said in the definition of Sattology, it is based on the foundation of Bhagavad-gita, and anything that doesn't fit is not Sattology. Many people study Bhagavad-gita, which is good start. Many people study, but when it comes to extracting the essence of Bhagavad-gita, usually they remain like a monochromatic, like in a very specific, focused way they try to take it. So somebody says only Karma Yoga. Somebody says only Jnana Yoga. Somebody says only Bhakti Yoga. Somebody says only like a Buddhi Yoga and a Sankhya Yoga, and just yoga only in the sense of what you call Hatha Yoga. Somebody will just call, take the Raja Yoga, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Raja Yoga. They will call it Raja Yoga, and then they create a small island of their own. Now, someone's island or someone's pond, depending on what they like to be on the land or water. Someone's pond may be bigger than other person's pond. Someone's island may be bigger than other person's island. But at the end of the day, it is the island and it is a pond. Okay. Whereas Bhagavad-gita is the ocean. So unless people think of understanding various facets of it, apply the viveka, right? So that is what the Arjuna's question to Krishna, right? So you're emphasizing Buddhi Yoga, but at the same time, you're asking me to do Karma Yoga. I mean, Arjuna is not using the word yoga per se, but you're asking me to do karma, but you're telling me the Buddhi Yoga is better than the action. Okay. So tell me what it is. And What Arjun is asking there, of course, he's representing a common man, just like Namdeva does it in his bhajan, is asking, in a way, you can say, because Vyasadeva is encoding that wisdom in Mahabharata. Vyasadeva is doing it for on behalf of people, like he's anticipating common man's questions and in a way trying to respond to them, right? So Arjuna's question is almost like asked on behalf of an individual person. And what does individual person want? Again, Adityaji, that is also a challenge of an individual person. If you mention, we will give the answer. But what is the qualification? Qualification is that they have gone through your works. If they want to ask you a question, they have gone through my works, which means what? Blogs, books, videos, and so on, articles. And in spite of that, they have a question, or because of they have a question, because they read through my books, blogs, watch my videos, now they have a question, it makes sense. But many people will refuse to do any of this and all of this. They have to do all of it and still ask the question, then they will not get answer. I mean, I am not going to waste my time with a lazy person. So back to concluding on answering your question, people take it a very specific aspect. Majority have a very narrow view, not deliberate, but just based on their intellect, sometime based on their training, which is to say, just like Arjun asked, okay, so you're asking me, you're telling me, Krishna, Bhagavan Krishna, telling me that Buddhi Yoga is superior to action, but you're asking me to do action. So tell me, should I do Buddhi Yoga or should I do action? And what the person is expecting, a common individual is expecting a binary answer, a very specific answer. Well, guess what? Bhagavad-gita never gives a binary answer, never gives answer in terms of yes and no. It's very crisp, it's very, very clean, clear, sharp, but it never gives a binary action. If you ask Buddhi Yoga versus action, no binary answer, Karma Yoga. If you ask Karma Yoga versus Jnana Yoga, no answer, like just do Karma Yoga, no? At some point, he will say, Ekam Sankyam Cha Yogam Cha. As you improve your knowledge, there is no difference, which means you have to articulate, you have to quadrangulate, you have to bring it all together. And when that is not done, what happens, Adityaji, is that the devotees fighting, the bhakta fighting among themselves. Go ahead. Many times also, Adityaji, what happens is when bhakti is seen as just a sadhana, japa, tapa, vrata, but no meaningful action to do betterment, to bring betterment to the society, it becomes a mithyachar. Okay, Krishna talks about it. Okay, otherwise it's a mithyachar. If it's not connected with what is required in the society, the person is ignorant of what is happening out there in society. A lecture will not do. An individual sadhana might help that individual, but it's not of benefit. It's a very selfish act. And by definition, Adhyatma, Atma is you or self or consciousness, and Adhi is like getting above, getting beyond yourself is Adhyatma. So if you are going to just become so selfish, bring that otherwise worldly attitude of selfishness to what you do, even in the name of Adhyatma, then there is going to be a disaster. That is the reason why people fight.
Very good point. I think because we there is a much bigger things to offer than fighting amongst ourselves, especially the yoga community. And you correctly said, the whole Bhagavad-gita talks about one yoga, this reconnecting with Paramatma and seeing yo Pashati Sar Pashati Sarv Pashati. Means to what you, when you see everyone in me and me in everything, then that person actually sees. Sa Buddhiman Manusheshu. That's how you become Buddhiman. And our idea of Buddhiman is totally different. Buddhiman means somebody who has cracked an IQ score, which is for the Western audience, because their buddhi is only till that level.
Yeah.
So Alpa Buddhaya, that's also is used. People who are Alpa Buddha also, they think they are much higher than others. So as a yogi, we don't judge anyone else other than ourselves, not others. You know? And for others, Samadarshana, seeing everyone equally. Now, coming to the next point, like today's conflicts we see, and again, I'm touching upon it, and I really want the Europeans especially to get into yoga, because they have created so many wars. And without Sanya Shakti, Narad Muni says, you cannot assert good values. The
Yeah.
same Sanya Shakti to undermine you, same Sanya Shakti to promote it also. So only pravachan doesn't work. So what do you have to say that Bharat, if they want to really offer yoga to everyone, everyone has to recognize these are strong.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why will people listen to Pandava? Pandavas were militarily the strongest people on the planet. And it does just require one person, not five. One person. One moon is better than 1,000 stars. But anyway, so what is your viewpoint? Acha, ek aur cheez one more thing I saw, Nilesh ji. Moon is referred to as nakshatra.
Hmm.
Nakshatra ananam aham sashi.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Talk later on.
Right, right.
Go
That's
ahead.
another subject, but we might just briefly address since you
Yes.
raised it. But the first part, well, I mean, what do I think? Well, I can give you what I think, but my knowledge in bits and pieces, Satyamsha, it comes from my reading of Bhagavad-gita and Mahabharata. In Shanti Parva and Anushasan Parva, when Yudhishthir Maharaj and Pitama Bhishma, when they are having this conversation, all these different Moksha Dharma, Raja Dharma, Apad Dharma, they're discussing this. And Bhishma says this. Bhishma says it in a multiple context when he has asked the questions why he was silent in certain places and so on and so forth. He says, Dharma is there, philosophical text is there, that is fine. But just like we have a law book, like a constitution, but it needs to be implemented, and if the police force is not strong enough, it cannot implement. Similarly, if the military force is not strong enough, your constitution or might say these are the boundaries of my country. But if the military is not strong enough, they will not able to defend or keep the validity of those boundaries. In that context or bigger context, Bhishmacharya is saying to Yudhishthira, as he's telling about the Raja Dharma and whatnot, he says, it is the strength. Okay, so the Dharma is there in the book, Dharma Sutra, it may be there, but it is the strength, what the powerful person says becomes the Dharma. Although it may not be perfectly Dharma, right? So therefore, Shapadapi Sharadapi, what you really want is to truly understand Dharma, but then truly become powerful and powerful in every sense of the word. That's why all our devatas have Shastra and Astra. Okay, everything in their hand. Become powerful, then only you can implement what is there in your text. What is as a Dharma? So whatever the powerful acts or whatever the powerful professes becomes the Dharma. In some case, you will say, in the Western powers understood that. Now, they didn't have the Dharma. That was the problem. The virtuous thinking was not there. It was just for me and mine and just to purely, find yourself.
They are also following Asuric Dharma.
Of course. Yeah, they're following Asuric Dharma, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, what they think right, which comes from the Tamasic Buddhi, which is a 180-degree opposite.
Kartaham iti manyate.
Huh?
Right? Like,
yeah. Yeah. So that's it. So powerful we have to be. I mean, you just cannot focus on one aspect of it. And that is what the Samyak Jnana that Mundaka Upanishad refers to. So suppose we have evolved in a tremendous way on the virtues. Great. Now to protect the virtues, you have to build the strength. If you have too much power, okay, I mean, so much power, excellent. Now build the virtues. I mean, that is that balance, between various things.
Thank you so much. I think you can, our topic is very relevant. Satyameva Jayate.
Right. Satyameva Jayate. Absolutely. And that is the motto for Bharat Bhumi, right? Satyameva Jayate. Now, for the benefit of our audience, many people, I mean, people of Indian background or some connection with India and has taken some pain to know something about the country, knows that the what you call Dheya Vakya, Brida Vakya, whatever, motto is Satyameva Jayate. But not many people know where it comes from. Now, of course, it is mentioned in few places, but one important place is, and then it's been elaborated other places, is Mundaka Upanishad. Okay, where it comes as a Satyameva Jayate Nanrutam, and Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayanaha. And I will actually bring it out and show it also. So the truth triumphs, not the untruth. Now it may take time, but it's also important to understand how we know what is truth and what is not truth. And how does it come? Somebody says, oh, acha, so that's good. if Satya is the good thing, bhai mujhe bata do. This is extremely tamasic, even a asuric, and a very lazy attitude. Now, in a shraddha fashion, somebody may do it, somebody may have a trust in someone, but that trust can be risky too. So always they say, trust, but always validate.
That's right.
Okay. So satyanrute, satyameva jayate, nanrutam, like asatya is never triumphs. Although in a short term, it may appear that it can have its victory. So let me share this. And we will use again, certain examples, my favorite examples, but something that people can easily relate to, which is in the context of Mahabharata and Krishna. But what I'm going to focus on is this path of science or path of Adhyatma, both in an Indian context. In fact, look at Western Europe and therefore now America and all that. If you look for their foundations, what is their foundation? Like in Europe, the struggle was such, there was a struggle between the so-called religions and the so-called science. I'm saying so-called religion, so-called science, because that conflict was not there in the Indian Dharma civilization. Now, there are individuals within even Dharma civilization, Indian civilizations, because of their lack of knowledge, okay, because everyone is at a different stage of progression, all of us, you and me included. That's why people fight. You ask the question, why people fight? Because their background knowledge is not the same. Their comprehension of Vijnana Buddhi is not the same. Their ability at logical reasoning is not the same. Therefore, they may look at or pretend to look at the same evidence and still bring many different outputs. And then the common man is confused. But you know what? Only these people who work on something and bring out something, only they are not to be blamed. Even the common man is to be, common individual is to be blamed if all they are going to do is sit on their bottoms, do nothing, and in a very blind way. See, shraddha and andhashraddha, there is no difference. Okay, it is a conviction. So therefore, trust, that's a shraddha, but verify. Trust, but validate. And that is the path of Adhyatma, that is the path of science. Therefore, Aditya ji, even when you have a guru, what are you looking for? If guru says something, it is the duty of a Shisha to look at the Shastra, to see what guru said, does it match with the Shastra? But it is not over at that. That is also another confusion. Some people will just look at the Shastras, other people will look at only guru, other people will look at guru and Shastra. But they will forget that there has to be something called Atma Pratiti. Guru Pratiti, Shastra Pratiti, but Atma Pratiti. Okay? You have to experience it yourself, empirically, Anubhava. Okay? Experientially, you have to do this. But let's get into this. The path of science and or Adhyatma, I said, because in the Indian philosophical context, the knowledge context, there is no difference. And now science is slowly, very slowly, is realizing that. Finally, just in a Western context, it tried to go away from the so-called religion. And I think that was a very right thing, because the religions were extremely dogmatic. And unfortunately, those dogmatic elements are there and celebrated even in our civilization, I'll tell you, at least what I see in the contemporary times. That is not to say they were not there before. But if you look at the works of Acharyas, you find they were trying to do the best for their times based on whatever knowledge was available. And that is the path of Adhyatma, that is the path of Satya, that is the path of science. So let's begin with this foundation here, Aditya ji. So Adhyatma, see if you, and you can critique them, of course, afterwards, and also tell me if you like these definitions. My good friend, Fadkeji, so he's a wonderful student of Nyaya, but he's also a wonderful student of operation, like what do you mean? Operation science, business operations dynamics, which is also my area for most of my life. That's what my expertise is in. He gave me these definitions. Okay. So I want to give the credit where it is due. And he wrote down Adhyatma. Now, he might have built on his own, or he might have found from his guru, or whichever way. But to me, it came from him. So Adhyatma he defines as a logically refined Shastra. And Shastra you can take as our Shastra in a broader sense, or even in a reductionist sense, the modern science, you can take that. So logically refined Shastra is Adhyatma. And what is a Shastra or science? Logically refined Adhyatma. Because in Adhyatma, because of the Shastra Pratiti, Guru Pratiti, you may take certain things that you have not validated yet. Even for in your own experience, like Atma Pratiti, you may have some experiences for which you don't have a logical explanation yet, like a Karya Karana Bhav, just like quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is being used everywhere. It works, but we have not found a logical foundation of it. You know, our all the existing modern theories are not capable of explaining the quantum outcome. Okay, so we may use many things that are not been validated yet in a logical fashion, in an empirical fashion, in the sense of karya karana bhav, and we may still use it. So therefore, refining the adhyatma takes us to that shastra, and refining the shastra takes us to adhyatma. It is a one enriches the other. That's the journey. That is how the Indian philosophical foundation, dharmic foundations are laid. There is no conflict whatsoever. One is enriched by the other. They benefit from each other. They go hand in hand. Okay. So now, what is the idea there? Okay. Through this synthesis, the Sat grows, the Satya. Okay. What is our understanding of what is grows? And this is that verse, Adityaji, that I was referring to. This comes from Mundaka Upanishad. Satyameva Jayate. Generally, that's what people have heard. Okay, usually that's the motto that is used as a Brida Vakya, Dheya Vakya in the Bharat, as a Bharat, as a country, as a nation. Satyameva Jayate Nanrutam. I'll stop there. The translation would be a crude translation, of course. Truth alone triumphs. And when we talk of truth, we are not talking of a relative truth. We are talking of a truth which we can refine further. Okay, that is not a problem. We may think today this is correct, and then with the additional knowledge, information, tapasya, and everything, we can refine it. How do we refine? Say, how do we refine the gold? Refining gold means we heat it up. Okay, we heat it up. We use certain processes, the metallurgical processes, knowledge that we have, and every time we try to remove the impurities. Okay, remove the impurities, and that's how it gets pure. This process is also described in the same Upanishad. So Satyameva Jayate Nanrutam, truth alone triumphs, not falsehood. And Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayanaha. Through truth, the divine path is spread out. It becomes bigger. It becomes wider, that Vitato. Okay. Why? Because Satyamsha, as you bring more and more truth to it, it's going to get bigger and bigger. And what is eliminated, what is removed is the error or the impurities, okay, that are removed. How does that happen? How does this process take place is also explained in this same Upanishad. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma. First thing it says, why even bother to know the truth? Because that is the only way to purification. That is the only way to liberation. That is the only way to understand who you are. Atma Jnana. Okay. Paramatma Jnana, Atma Jnana. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma. Only through Satya you can know about the Atma. Atma, Paramatma, the ultimate reality. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma. Samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. What are the tools that you need? To get to Satya, you need a samyak jnana, a balanced attitude. Okay. An attitude which is full of attachment to certain things, full of attachment to a priori outcomes. The person already has in mind what he or she wants to prove. That is not useful for knowing the truth. You may have assumptions, you may have hypotheses. Well, that is the path to get to truth, and we will see that through this method. But you have your a priori decided what the truth is, a truth meaning what you want to prove, and now you are desperate to prove it by hook or crook. That is not the path of a Satya. Okay, so samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. Now brahmacharya we have talked many times, which means what? Contemplation, okay, manan, chintan, dhyana, right? Action, tarka shastra, but tantra yukti. Doing action, not asking others to do anything. Okay, you can ask for their help, you can request their help. And as Adityaji, you mentioned, when people ask questions, if they ask in a challenging way, they're not going to get answer. Krishna refuses to give answer if anyone asks in a challenging fashion. And we, as a devotees of Krishna, we have to follow his footsteps. We shouldn't answer, because what do we mean by we shouldn't answer? Are we arrogant? Like, that's what ordinary people sometimes think. No, it's not arrogance. If you ask in the wrong attitude, even if the answer is given, you will not understand, because you asking a question, but you are not ready to receive the answer. I'll give you a simple humorous example, Aditya. People will ask, like, as soon as I tell them, based on the super rich evidence of Mahabharata and Puranas, and the very original work of Jivan Rao, that the Kali Yuga began on the last and 18th day of the Mahabharata war. And it began on the 2nd November, 5561 BCE. Instead of comprehending this beautiful knowledge, which was simply not there, and people were just dealing with speculations of 3102 BC and whatnot, the person wants to just run and ask the other question. Have you really understood what has been told, what the Kali Yuga means, what the Dwapar Yuga means? I will talk about the 4 different definitions of Yuga. The person pretends that he has paid attention or she has paid attention, person as if they are listening, but they are not actually listening. Because then they immediately ask the question, okay, so when is the Kali Yuga ending? Which means they have not listened to what I said. Okay. Now, just as a humorously, I will say, so when they ask that question, and because they refuse to comprehend, maybe they don't have enough intellect, and they ask also, when is it ending? So I say, well, actually write it down. Okay. So it is ending on 17th June 2642 CE. Immediately they'll, no, how can that be? Come on. That means you don't have a shraddha on me. You ask me a question because nobody is giving you the answer and you don't have an answer. So therefore I give you the answer now, 27 June 2642, about what is that, 600 years from now. Then the person will jump and says, no, but isn't that like a Kali Yuga is like 432,000? And if it began 2nd November 5561 BC, I say, fine. So if that's what you believe, then start with 2nd November 5561 BC, add 432,000, and you have your answer. Why are you asking me? Why be lazy? Or why be stupid? But that's what people do. So the point is, if you want to ask a question, even to ask a question, you have to make your qualification. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeksha. Then only it will happen. Tadvidhi. There is a vidhi. Tadvidhi pranipatena. There is a method to madness. There is a process how you ask. Pariprashnena sevaya, by question also, and in a very seva bhav attitude, that you have a shraddha on that person, therefore you are coming to that person. You have done your background study, still you have not found the answer, or because of that study, now you have some questions, then it makes sense. Okay, all right, let's move on. Now, what is that method? The method to madness, that other verse from Mundaka Upanishad, Adityaji, besides Satyameva Jayate that I quoted, it's my favorite verse, by the way, favorite shloka. Satyena labdas tapasa yesha atma samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. So these are the 4 tools or 3 tools we can say to get to Atma through Satya. And how do you get to Satya? Through samyak attitude and through brahmacharya, which means what? Contemplation, meditation, thinking, action, all of this, not any one of the 4 or 5, whatever it is. Doggedness, tenacity, perseverance, all of this is required with no guarantee of success. That is a brahmacharya. You have such a strong conviction, shraddha, that even when you face failures after failures, and I'm going to show you an example of this. In fact, the failure is a beautiful thing if you have the right construct, right method. I'll show you that. This is how we get to the Satya. And that's how, through step by step, in an iterative fashion, of course, with no guarantee of success, the path of Satya gets wider and wider, longer, bigger, and virtuous. Okay, that's that Devayana, the path of the goodness. Okay, the divine path, beautiful path. What is the method? Okay, now if you take the Darshan Shastra, it will talk about the Nyaya Darshana. So Pramana, Prameya, Samshaya, Prayojana. Samshaya is very important. We will look at that. Okay. Samshaya, prayojana, drishtanta, siddhanta, avayava, tarka, nirnaya, vada. There are 10 of these things that one must understand if you want to take this path. And then there are 5 others, actually 6, but 5 others that one must understand in order to realize what not to do. Like Samartha Ramdas Swami, we did one episode. He talks about the Murkha Lakshan and Padata Murkha Lakshan. And he says, I am describing this Murkha Lakshan, okay, the characteristics of a fool or characteristics of a learned fool. Why am I describing this? Not so that you start following, imitating those, rather so that you avoid them. Similarly, Nyaya Darshana also talks about Jalpa, Vitanda, Hetva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati. These are the 5 things to avoid, and also avoiding the kind of stupid, fallacious, futile arguments that immediately disqualifies you from any discussion, any debate. Okay, so that's what it talks about. In a simple form, as far as the method goes, the method that is Avayava method, okay, that has been described in Nyaya Darshana. Here I'm going to describe it in the modern format described by Sir Karl Popper. He calls it the path of, this is a path, huh? The pantha, satyana pantha vitato daivyana. What is that path? What is this method? It is this method. And I'm going to show you how it gets bigger, broader, and takes us towards the truth. We may have found the truth, and which is great. It enriches the truth. It refines the truth. Even when we think we have found the truth, there can be impurities. Okay, so again, going back to that Mundaka Upanishad, besides Satyana, what is that? Satyameva Jayate. It's Satyana Labhyas Tapasa Yesha Atma Samyak Jnanena Brahmacharena Nityam Antasharire Jyotirmayo hi Shubhra. As you purify, what happens? Antasharire Jyotirmayo hi Shubhra. A very pure light. Okay, this is a metaphor. Shines. Antasharire. In your body, in your brain, in your intellect, okay, shines. Antasharire Jyotirmayo hi Shubhro. And the next line is also important. Yam Pashyanti Yataya Kshina Dosha. Okay, such rare yatis, the rare word is not used, yatis, those people who have gone through Satya, Samyak, Brahmacharya, okay, and gone through these iterations of it, just like a Bhargavi Varuni Vidya. You know, the Bhrigu comes to Varuna, his father, and says, give me this knowledge. He doesn't give a ready-made knowledge. Why? If Varuna gives it, the Bhrigu will not understand. Varuna says, go do tapasya. Bhrigu goes, does tapasya, comes with a satyansha. He says, now I understand. Annam brahmeti vejanat. This is from Taittiriya Upanishad. Annam brahmeti vejanat. And now he says, now, hey, that's what I understood. Now, my father, Varuna, tell me what it is. And Varuna says, good, you're on the right path. Now go back. Do more tapasya and see what you find. Then Bhrigu goes back and does a lot of tapasya, comes back with a slightly higher realization. Prano brahmeti vejanat. Okay, and then he goes through Mano brahmeti vejanat and on, and Vijnana brahmeti vejanat, Ananda brahmeti vejanat. The method and the process of knowing the truth is in an iterative fashion. The last line of the Mundaka Upanishad, Yam Pashyanti Yataya Kshina Dosha. Very beautiful. How scientific. Kshina Dosha. The dosha will always remain. Okay, but you have to always make effort to purify, always make effort to remove the dosha, remove the error. That is this process here I am describing. So what Sir Karl Popper, more likely he got it from the path, of the Buddhist, the Silk Route coming to eastern part of Europe, eastern part of Western Europe, you can say. Through that, we will not go into that discussion. Whichever way he found it, he is describing this method. Okay, the method of a Mundaka Upanishada or Taittiriya Upanishada, Bhargavi Varuni Vidya. How do you begin? We begins with the toughest unsolved problem. That is P1, P for problem. It's like Bhrigu asking, what is Brahma? Okay, and then a solution is proposed to solve the problem. Now, how the solution was proposed? Varuna didn't give it ready-made on the platter. You know why? Bhrigu would not have appreciated it. That is what happens. I mean, Adityaji, you can discuss your experience. But when you give a ready-made knowledge, instead of the person feeling grateful, the person starts questioning it. Just like I told you about the Kali Yuga beginning, Kali Yuga ending, 4 types of Yuga. The person is not even paying attention. So what do you say? Well, go find out. Great question. Go find out yourself. A solution is proposed to solve the problem. Like Bhrigu came and said, Annam Brahmeti Vejanat. And Varuna did not say, oh, you are wrong or something. He said, okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Now you're thinking, you're making some progress. And says, but father, tell me more. He says, well, I will tell you more. The next step is go back and do more tapasya. Samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. Brahmacharya. Okay. Contemplation, tapasya, contemplation, meditation, thinking, action, and so on. That's what the brahmacharis used to do in a guru's ashram. Okay. They are doing all the activities, and in a small portion of the time, they are studying. Error elimination is that kshina dosha. So he talks about the formula as a P1. All the students and researchers and faculty and academics, whoever are listening to it, but going to listen to it also, they can relate to this, and they have to relate to this. You start with the toughest unsolved problem. I'm going to use Aditya ji, the Mahabharata as an illustration. And I will ask you, because you have that platform, but it's an open question and it's an open information for people who would be listening to this eventually or otherwise. Anytime somebody claims that they have found something, I'll take Mahabharata dating as example. It can be Ramayana dating, Sushruta, or it doesn't have to be dating, anything. If they think they have found a cure for cancer, I mean, what a fraud is created under the name of a cancer. That's another subject, okay, some other time. You have to ask the questions, okay? So what is the problem you're trying to solve? Now, in case of cancer, they say, oh, I was trying to cure the cancer. Okay, did you cure it? I mean, you see the cycle. In case of, there are 100+ people in the last 100 years who claim that they worked on the dating of Mahabharata and they have figured out a date. You ask them a question, what was the toughest unsolved problem from the Mahabharata that you were trying to solve, which was not solved by anyone else? I mean, what is it that brought to you? Because if you come there and there are 30 other individuals who have come up with a claim for Mahabharata, what was your motivation to come up with another one without even looking at them? They have no answer. Not even a single individual has an answer to that question. A solution is proposed to solve the problem. So now if you truly have a tough unsolved problem, to solve that problem, you propose a solution. Then you try to eliminate the error. What is that elimination of error? The toughest unsolved problem, meaning there is some kind of a prediction. It is saying this is happening, this was happening, and so on. And we'll look at the examples. But the current explanation, current claim, a theory or a specific claim for a specific year, again, I'll use Mahabharata as an illustration, Mahabharata dating, is not matching with what is said in the Mahabharata text. Something is stated in Mahabharata text, but a current theory, current proposal, current specific year does not match with what the Mahabharata is saying. Okay, that is the problem. To solve that problem, you propose a solution, which means more than likely you're going to get a different date also. Okay, but when that happens, did it eliminate the error? Did it solve the problem that was not solved before? If it does, it's like a huge success, guys. That's a revolution. Okay, now somebody just wants to clap and celebrate. Well, that's worthy of doing. I mean, one must do it. But a success comes with something more. Like, in the corporate world, we say, no good work goes unpunished. I mean, you say that even otherwise, but somebody does a good job. Now that person gets promoted, more responsibility. I have seen it in my life, my corporate life. And then the life gets tougher. You get busier. You have no time for anything else. Okay. So successful solution leads to problems. Again, it leads to problems, meaning the first problem is gone, but that doesn't mean all the problems are solved. That is also majority of the folks simply don't understand. When I will explain, Aditya ji, like in my lectures, like something so fascinating, whether it's astronomy evidence or oceanography evidence or climatology evidence, genetics evidence, genealogy evidence, on and on, geology evidence, hydrology evidence, many of them, instead of comprehending that evidence and like just trying understanding, oh, wow, they will not understand. They will jump and say, what about archaeology? What about this? And so on. Well, guess what? The problems never go away, but there is no point asking somebody else to solve the problem. A successful solution always leads to problems of higher complexity, and that's a good thing. Okay. Satyena pantha vitato devayana. The path becomes wider, gets bigger because of this, because of the newer problems of higher complexity. And when you solve them, we know more truth. Okay, more interesting truth, and the path gets wider. And then the cycle repeats. The P2 becomes your starting point now, because the solution to P1 becomes your agama knowledge, background knowledge, vyapti dhyan. It becomes a part of a vyapti dhyan. And now with that bigger vyapti dhyan, that is that vitato devayana, a wider path of the truth, satya path, right? Satyana pantha. It gets wider and wider. You can imagine this like a megaphone shape, it gets wider and wider, because the background knowledge allows you to solve bigger problems. And how does it repeat? Let's look at this. I'll stop this one here. Okay, so for example, this is how my journey is. And again, this is not to emphasize all the time 5561 BC. That's a fact. That's given. Okay, people like to fight about it, and I love that, because only when a claim is challenged, okay, people try to find holes in it. What happens? If it is false, if it is not true, anruta, it is fake, it is a mithya, then it will fall on its own. It will fall like what you call the house of cards. Okay, just touch it, like how the house of cards fall. You just touch it, you blow the air, and it falls. If it is mithya, it will fall on its own. You don't need to put much effort. Okay, that's what I show. Actually, Aditya, if you remember, we have done what is that? Purva Paksha series on various Mahabharata claims. One by one, we did this. I mean, I did it with you, and I've shown it just falls like a pack of cards, a house of cards. But if it is the truth, guess what? You try to punch holes into it, you try to find holes into it, and actually it's going to rebound back, like the Rutherford's electron experiment. It's going to rebound back and smack you in the face. That's what 5561 BCE does every single time. It's going to rebound and smack in your face. And in the process, if you are humble enough, you are intelligent enough, you're going to learn. Okay, so where did my journey begin? When I started around 1995, I came across this one observation, Arundhati Vasishtha observation. I found it curious, and I said, I'm very curious to know what solution the Mahabharata researchers have found, because it is there in the Mahabharata. Vyasa is saying at the time of Mahabharata war, Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishtha, the Arundhati star walking ahead of Vasishtha. Right now, it is not walking that way. They have a very small proper motions. Their shape is more or less fixed for thousands of years. It's not changing fast. So what is the secret? And when I looked at the existing claims, then possibly around 100 or so, okay, and even at least half of them claiming astronomy evidence, and this is astronomy evidence, nobody has done anything to it. Nobody has explained it, but still they have gone on proposing a date. Now, nothing wrong with that, by the way, because remember, there will always be some evidence that you may not be able to explain. Okay, just like a tennis match, when Federer is winning against Nadal, and let's say there is a particular match when Federer beat Nadal 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, for example. Okay, in that match also there were some shots, some points that Nadal claimed against Federer, and some person who doesn't understand tennis will say, well, but I saw the match and I did see Nadal scoring some points against Federer. How can you still saying Federer is the winner and Federer won 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, and there is no score whatsoever on the side of Nadal? Just like we will say, well, man, you don't understand tennis or how the tennis score is counted. Same thing applies when it comes to finding the truth. We say you don't understand how the path of Satya is, how the method of finding the truth is, what is the method of science. You don't understand. It is to be done with a truth likeness score or verisimilitude score. You take the total evidence that is defined by the theory and split it into preferably 2 buckets. There can be many buckets. We'll not talk about this. The evidence that matches for your proposal and a theory versus the evidence that does not match for your proposal. And that is how science progress, Satya progresses, and the path becomes wider. So what did I do? Next thing, I spent 15 years from 1995 to 2009. And the outcome, okay, for the problem of the P1 there was my theory was, it is a visual observation. In fact, my theory was, you cannot just make one specific theory for one observation, another theory for another observation. But that's the kind of nonsense happens in this Mahabharata dating field. My theory for all observations, astronomy observation, is that all astronomy observations of Mahabharata text are actual, factual, visual observations of the sky. So therefore, Arundhati must be also visual or factual, actual observation of the sky. And after 15 years of hard work, tapasya, brahmacharya, with a samyak jnana, not trying to cook up something to fool people, fool ordinary people, I spent 15 years, and what was the outcome? That was the error elimination, by the way, EE, that I'm writing in the second line. It showed that actually there was a time from 11,091 BC to 4508 BCE when Arundhati did walk ahead of Vasishta. And then 10 years after me, what is his name? He is a Hare Krishna devotee, Adityaji. I'm forgetting his first name now. Chabra. Last name is Mr. Chabra. He took this, he used the latest astronomy data. See, this is the iterative process. He used the latest astronomy data of 2019 as opposed to what I was doing 2009, 10 years after. The more precise, more accurate data coming from Hubble telescope. And through that, he could show that actually this interval is not from 11,091 to 45 BCE, but even it gets further smaller from 10,248 BCE. Yeah, next one, further refinement by Mr. Chabra to 4636 BCE. This is that Kshina dosha. Okay. Elimination of error, elimination of impurity, and trying to make a purify. Okay, Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayana. That's how it gets bigger, broader, finer, refined, precise, accurate. Now, what is the beauty of this Arundhati Vasishta observation? One single observation from the Mahabharata text immediately, instantaneously, decisively falsified 96% plus of all the existing claims, 130 plus claims. Now, funny thing is, there are Mahabharata researchers who have come after 2010 trying to claim some date. They claim something which doesn't fit into this bracket, and they don't feel any wrong with it. That is how poor the scientific acumen is that many people have, or logical reasoning skills. If you cannot explain Arundhati Vasishta and you are claiming you are doing this using astronomy, even if you're doing otherwise, we'll not talk about that today. This is a problem. Arundhati Vasishta will stop you in the tracks. But if you're claiming astronomy evidence and you don't address Arundhati Vasishta, you lost the competition, you lost the game before even the race began. Okay, that's the point. Now, what happened is that 96% claims were gone. So I started looking at any existing claims from those 100 plus that fell within this bracket of epoch of Arundhati. Epoch of Arundhati is now 10,248 BC through 4636 BC. And what do you find? There were few other claims, but they were like so vague. For example, Mr. Modoc has given that, based on whatever calculation he did, and I don't have the details. He said it appears like Mahabharata war must have happened around 5000 BC. Well, if you have said something so vague that you cannot even discuss, cannot even critically analyze it. But there were two claims. One was by Lele Shastri, again, a great Shastra Pandit, but also a very good knowledge of astronomy. And this claim is beautifully critiqued by the greatest astronomer in my mind of the world, Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, in his book, The History of Indian Astronomy. I would encourage people to read that. 5228 BC by Lele Shastri. And there was another claim which was made in the 1980s by Dr. P.V. Vartak, okay, 5561 BCE. So I looked at those claims, and 5228 BC I could easily falsify using additional evidence of Mahabharata text. I'll not go there today. But now 5561 BC, the many points that I found, not all, that I could not immediately eliminate it. So between the two, 5561 was a better one. So I said, let me explore, let me critique it, let me expose it to harsh test and see if it still survives. Kshina dosha. You have to see every test, just like when Guru tests the Shisha, Guru tests the disciple, every test is to see if the Shisha makes it or breaks it. If Shisha breaks or Shisha comes out triumph, Satyameva Jayate, does it triumph over it and comes to the other side? If he breaks, then he was not ready to go to the next round. Just like in tennis, Wimbledon or French Open, there are rounds played. And if you don't get sufficient point or you don't get victories in the early rounds, you are eliminated. Okay, it's the same process. So I eliminated 5228 BC. Now now you see how the problem goes to the bigger one. Now 5561 BC, in claim of Dr. Vartak, he had claimed that Kartik Amavasya, which is the last day of Kartik in the Amanta system, because sometimes people have different notations, like they will call end of Kartik as a Margashirsha Amavasya. Therefore, I'm making it clear. The Kartik Amavasya here, I'm referring to a day that will occur about 15 days after the Kartik Purnima. That's what I'm calling Kartik Amavasya, to avoid any confusion, because sometimes there is a confusion in the nomenclature. So Vartak had claimed Kartik Amavasya as the first day of war. Now Vartak is not the only one. I would say 60% plus folks, whether they understand it or not, they don't know. They will not able to explain why, but they also, based on a tradition or whatnot, they also say, yeah, the war began on the day of Kartik Amavasya. Now there are others who propose other days, but will not go there. Not go there because it is extremely foolish. There is no evidence in the Mahabharata text for that. So actually, I'm going to show you why that any other assumption for the first day of war other than Kartik Amavasya is a baseless assumption. And Hitchens' razor apply. What is Hitchens' razor? Christopher Hitchens. He says a claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Somebody just says, "Arey bhai, the war began on the Ekadashi day. War began on the Dwadashi day. War began on the Purnima." Based on what? No evidence. Dismissed. You don't have to show what evidence is there to dismiss that case. Actually, I'm going to show you evidence because it exists, but there is no need to show the evidence. So now I found that Dr. Vartak had claimed Kartik Amavasya as the first day of Mahabharata war, but I couldn't find in his book, Swayambhu, his name of the book is Swayambhu, beautiful, wonderful book. Everyone should read it. Okay, the translation or the way it is originally written in Marathi. But no decisive evidence was provided by him. So I turned that into my problem, P2. I said, is there a decisive evidence for the first day of Mahabharata war? Okay. And so that's where this journey begins. So I'm going to show you, and Aditya will go for another 10-15 minutes, and I think I'll be done, but we can stop at any point. So now, what is the next problem? The problem of higher complexity. The problem is there Arundhati Vasishtha decided 10,248 BC and 4636 BC is the only time interval within which a Mahabharata war can take place. Mahabharata war cannot take place anytime after 4636 BC. Mahabharata war cannot take place anytime before 10,248 BC. That is given. Now we said, well, but that 5561 seems to be a good candidate, but Vartak is saying in the war began on Kartik Amavasya, but he has not given the evidence. Can we find the evidence? Now, the reality is that we may find evidence, we may not find evidence. Remember what I told you? That when you get into this journey, the path of Satya, it's not an easy path. The other Upanishad says, Kshurasya dhara nishita duratteya. This path in the search of truth is like what? Walking on a double-edged sword. It is like a double-edged sword. It can easily cut you. It's not for the people who don't have tenacity, perseverance, no intellect. Okay, it's not for the people who are not willing to sacrifice. This path is not taken for a personal glory. Okay, this path is taken for its own sake. You want to know the truth because you want to know the truth. Like Dhaneshwar Maharaj in his Dhaneshwari, the commentary on Bhagavad-gita, he gives that as an example in explaining karma yoga, why give away the fruits. And he says, well, it's perfectly okay for a tree to expect the fruit at its outcome. Like, what is the purpose for the existence of a fruit tree? Let's say the fruit. What is the purpose for the existence of a flower tree? The flower. But what should flower expect? Okay, what is the purpose of a flower, or what is the purpose of a fruit? And of course, you can go and that somebody can eat it and all that. But the point is, the fruit itself, like we say, what fruit I get? Fruit is in the sense of the reward and outcome. The fruit itself, its own existence, its own reward. Similarly, The people who want to go for a Satya journey, they're saying, but if I do this, people, by the way, Aditya, people, I get these emails like, sir, I also want to do a research like you do, but can you tell me, how do you sustain yourself? I say, I work very hard for 12 hours to earn money in whatever way I can find. And then in the remaining hours, I do this research. There is no money coming from other sources. Now, I get some money from different sources like Patreon, for example, and I would encourage people to go and contribute on Patreon if they like my work. I use that for things like the volunteers that I mentioned, for example, for building a site, for maintaining sites, for various purposes like this, supporting some of the researchers in other places, like in India. But that money is very puny at this point. My point is, you don't do this for a personal glory. You don't do this to become rich in a financial sense or something. No, then, I mean, as an outcome, it may happen. Okay, now the people support me on the Patreon. That happens. But if that's your aim, you're on the wrong track. Okay, so is there a decisive evidence? And now again, I will say, go and ask any other Mahabharata researcher, do they have a decisive evidence for the first day of Mahabharata war? I will not tell you their answer. Let me tell you my answer. My answer meaning what Vyasadevji has recorded into the Mahabharata text. If somebody goes through the 18 days of the war descriptions, beginning with the Bhishma Parva, then Drona Parva, Karna Parva, Shalya Parva, Sautika Parva, and Stri Parva, just very, very close to the war. And of course, you can go to Udyoga Parva, but not even necessary here. You will find there are 30 plus observations through the 18 days of the war for the phases and positions of the moon, okay, throughout the war. Something more, it gives the descriptions every day when the war stopped. It also tells you, not always, but tells you the condition at the time of the war. For example, on the first day of the war, when the war stopped at the sunset, it says the darkness was like a pitch dark. There was a pitch dark situation that one couldn't see other person. What description is this? This is a description of a day of Amavasya or a day close to Amavasya. This is nowhere a description of a day of a Shukla Ekadashi, Dwadashi, Trayadashi, Chaturdashi, or Purnima. Not at all. Okay. And you can see these descriptions for the day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. Day 6 is the first time the war sort of lasted for some time after the sunset. Until then, sunset or before sunset, it stopped. Now, if you follow this, you'll find the 14th day, the war continued through the whole night. Okay, and now because they have fought for this, possibly 15th day, Drona also was killed, but 15th and 16th, they again stopped at the sunset. 17th day, while Pandava army went back to their tents, I mean their camps, the Kaurava army, now they were losing practically, Kaurava army decided to just stay on the battlefield. It is a day, 2 days after the full moon day, they stayed there. And then again, the 18th day, Ashwathama going into the Pandava camps and killing the sons of Draupadi. Again, it's a day very close to the full moon day. And those descriptions are there, phases and positions of the moon. Positions also. 12th day, the moon, full moon like moon is described near Kritika. 16th day near Vishaka is not the Vishaka Nakshatra, is a Vishaka, is the point of the equinox. Okay, I have discussed that in other lectures. 17th day is a Punarvasu. Okay, 18th day is a Pusha. And what does that tell you? It tells you it was the month of a Margashirsha. Okay, and it begins with Kartik Masaya. Beautiful. It actually, the Mahabharata evidence, the phases and positions of the moon, gives you phenomenal evidence, tells you that Kartik Masaya, the end of a Kartika in Amanta fashion, just the beginning of a Margashirsha month, is the first day of the Mahabharata war. That's the error elimination, Kshina Dosha. Done. Now, are we done? Not really. Now it raises another problem. Okay, so now, great. So Vartak gets 55-61 good on the Arundhati Vasishta observation. It's now good on the first day of the war, Kartika Amavasya. But now Vartak had claimed, now he's not alone. Actually, practically any other Mahabharata researchers, I'm saying besides me, humbly I'm saying this, any other Mahabharata researcher, including Dr. Vartak, Either don't talk about the duration of Bhishma on the bed of arrows, or if they do talk, they refer to 58 days. Okay, Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows for 58 days. That's what they say, between the 10th day of the war. Now, they don't have to take this date because they don't agree with this date. They don't understand. Okay, so 10th day of the war to the last, to the day of winter solstice. But Vartak is saying 5561 BC, but he is taking 58 days. So now I'm telling you how the newer problem of higher complexity now comes. So Kartik Masaya says the first day of war is great, 5561 is great, but now we have a problem with 58 days for Bhishma on the bed of arrows. Vartak assume 58 days. It will become a long subject. I will not go there. It is due to a mistake made by Nilakanta Chaturdhar 400 years ago. Okay, and a majority, almost all Mahabharata researchers are blindly copying to this day. And even in spite of my efforts, it seems their comprehension skills are just not up to par to even understand this basic. Forget understanding phenomenal, complex, interesting evidence. So Vartak claimed 58 days. Now, what is the problem with that? See, remember, the problem means something that you are claiming does not match with either the Mahabharata descriptions or your own theory or with your own claims, such as 5561 BCE. So Vartak claimed 58 days between 10th day of the war and Bhishma Nirvana. Now, what is the problem? The problem is, this is a problem because 50th day from 25 October 5561 BCE, the war began on 16th October per Vartak timeline, Kartik Masaya, I agree with it. So 10th day is the 25th October when Bhishma fell down, 5561 BC. But 50th day from 25th October, which comes out to what, 22nd December, is nowhere close to the day of winter solstice. But here Dr. Vartak was confused because in our times we think 22nd December is the day of winter solstice. But that was not the case using the calendar and whatnot, if you go back to the time of Mahabharata, or what Vyasa is saying. We'll come to that in a minute. So it's nowhere close. So this is a problem. So 5561 is good on the first two, but not on this. Let's go there. Okay. Now, so our problem is Vartak is claiming 58 days from the 10th day of the war to the Bhishma Nirvana. But from Vartaka's 10th day of the war, 25th October, if you add 58, you get a day which is nowhere close to the day of winter solstice. So that is a problem. That's an error. That's impurity, so to say. Kshina dosha. Now, how do we remove it? Now, are we proposing a new theory every time? No, that is what many of the utterly foolish Mahabharata researchers do. They will try to explain this with one theory, explain this with another theory, one astronomy observation using one theory. Here they say it's a planet, another place they say it's a comet, and just a tremendous, humongous fun that you're going to see if you watch their presentations. The theory is the same. All astronomy observations of the Mahabharata times are actual, factual, visual observations of that time. Now, what is the astronomy observation here? Here, astronomy observation is Kartik Masaya is, of course, astronomy observation. Arundhati Vasishta gave us the time bracket. Kartik Masaya gave the first day. Now, in Bhishma Nirvana, winter solstice is giving us the last day. So in any given year that somebody is claiming something like 5561 BC in this case, we can find out exactly when is the day of winter solstice. That day comes out to be 30 January 5560 BCE. Okay, now you can do the counting from 25th October to 30 January. It's not 58 days. The number is a lot more. Okay, it is actually 97 days. Okay, 98 days total Bhishma was on the bed of arrows. Now, what are we going to do? This is the time when I said, my God, actually I spent 6 months researching this simple thing. This is how complicated previous Mahabharata researchers have made a mess, a royal mess. Okay. Then I started reading Mahabharata text. I had to read it multiple times. I said, if this date is otherwise correct, if my theory is correct, and I'm getting many clues that this is correct, but this one has to make sense. So when I started reading, this is what I found. Initially, I found 6+ references. When I presented those, then people started objecting, raising some other objections, not objecting to them. They couldn't object to any of these sects, but some jalpa vitanda, hetva, bhasa, chala, jati type of foolish objections. So in order to do the nirakaran, in order to respond to them, I started reading Mahabharata again, and I now came up with 23 evidence references in support of what I'm going to show you. Then many people raise more foolish objections. Jalpa vitanda hitva bhasa chala jati. Futilities, okay, just to do a chala, literally the word chala that we do, artificially, deliberately creating chaos to confuse common people, even confuse the researcher. Futile arguments, fallacious argument. Vitanda, you don't have your own claim. Just say, oh, Nilesh is wrong. Okay. Jalpa, just a quarrel. Not interested in anything ultimate solution. Okay. Every time when I read Mahabharata to respond to those questions, I found more evidence in support of this. Now I have 60 plus. Now actually I have a 100 plus. Chronology, astronomy, all that evidence you find in the Mahabharata text related to Bhishma Nirvana. What does that tell you? That Bhishma was on the bed of arrows for more than 92 days or more than 95 days. And the answer in the year 5561 BCE is he was on the bed of arrows for 98 days. From 25th October 5561 BCE until 31st January 5560 BCE. Now you have to understand the BCE business. In BCE, when you do the calculation as the time flows, after 5561 BCE, 5560 BCE comes, because before common we are talking. So before we are coming towards us, okay? Solve the problem. Beautiful. Bhishma Nirvana occurred on 31st of January. Now guess what? Even this observation, just like Arundhati Vasishta destroyed 96% plus of all other alternate Mahabharata claims for the dating of Mahabharata year, this Bhishma Nirvana evidence, now that's why people are having sleepless nights. Mahabharata researchers are having sleepless nights, that Bhishma Nirvana is giving them sleepless nights. Bhishma talks about he having sleepless nights because he's on the bed of arrows. That evidence of Bhishma Nirvana is giving Mahabharata researchers sleepless nights because all their claims have fallen like a house of cards. You don't have to even blow the air, they just fall. Okay. No other Mahabharata researcher can show more than 92 or 95 days between the day of winter solstice and their 10th day of the war for the year they claim. Nobody can show it, but that's what Mahabharata evidence demands. Now, so we have an excellent match for Arundhati Vasishta. We have excellent match for Bhishma Nirvana. Also, the first day of the war, how Vartak arrived at 5561 BC. Now, he didn't do Arundhati Vasishta right. He didn't do Bhishma Nirvana right. He did claim correct claim for the first day of the war, Kartik Masaya, but he couldn't come up with the evidence of his own. So those people, I mean, Vartak, I consider my inspiration and like a guru like to me. But those people who blindly trust Dr. Vartak, they will also write to me saying, oh, why are you not acknowledging work of Vartak? First thing, they are wrong because they don't read my books or they don't read Vartak's books. Dr. Vartak has acknowledged my work. I acknowledge Dr. Vartak. So there is, Dr. Vartak passed away 3 years ago, 2019. And I was always in touch with him. We used to meet with him. We used to have a phenomenal discussion. My point is, people will not do the tapasya and just blame individuals. So that's why I'm also describing, Adityaji, what is it that, although 5561 BC was proposed by Vartak in 1980s, phenomenal work. I mean, I am at awe as to how did he arrive at that. And of course, people should read Swayambhu to figure out how he did it. I have read Swayambhu at least 100 plus times, and there is no exaggeration, by the way, no exaggeration. And it is always here on my desk. Okay, then Aditya, you tell me when to stop. I mean, we can do this next time also. Like, I have like a lot of things to go through this. These are all fascinating and we have no need to hurry per se. But let me state this one. Excellent match for Arundhati Vasishta that I found. Bhishma Nirvana also by luck I could find with the Vasudeva's Mahabharata. For the first day of the Mahabharata war, Kartika Masaya, I could find. So humbly I am stating that these are my contribution. I did not write it. It is the Vasudeva Krupa Keli. It is the mercy of a Vasudeva. But I was the instrument. I became the instrument to pull out these Satya, pull out these truths, okay, from the text of Mahabharata. That's what I'm saying. And they come in the iterative fashion. So Adityaji, I'm going to disturb you for a second and ask you how many minutes is okay for me to go. And accordingly, I will do this, or we can stop on this particular one.
You can continue, Nilesh.
Okay. So now we got this. Now remember P1, TT, EE, P2. When you solve a problem, toughest unsolved problem, it leads to a problem of higher complexity, more beauty. And this is what tells you, Adityaji, that you are on the right path. Satya Pantha. How do you know? Because you made a claim, there was a problem, you solved it, and instead of making this claim fall, it make it stronger. Okay, so if I would actually, therefore I said on this Bishma Nirvana 58 days, I spent 6 months. I mean, just 6 months on this one issue of 58 days. Okay, I said, where does this 58 days come from? And we are not going to solution. I'm going to present in 3-4 days somewhere else, and I'm going to show that, and we will come back on your show sometime and explain that. But let's move on. So now we know the 58 days is not the answer. Okay. Now there is one shloka in Mahabharata which refers to 58 days, but that can be very beautifully explained for this 98. We'll do that another time. Now, so this is claimed. Now Vartak had also claimed. So still this doesn't answer exactly how Vartak arrived at the 5561 BC as the year of Mahabharata war. Now Vartak has claimed, Dr. Vartak has claimed that he did it via planetary evidence. And in that statement, he is right. I want people to listen to this very carefully, especially the people who are great fan of Dr. Vartak. His statement is correct in the sense that the planetary evidence is the evidence, planetary evidence given in the Mahabharata text, which is 50 plus reach. 50 plus, 50 guys, I'm talking. Different description, different positions, different movements, and so on. Yes, it is that evidence that takes you to 5561 BCE. However, the way Vartak provided the explanations for the planetary descriptions from the Mahabharata text, I am asserting meaning what I'm saying is backed by evidence. I'm asserting that the Vartak's explanation are neither consistent nor do they match for 5561 BCE. Now, because I'm saying this, and because I have said it before, let me make this. When it comes to like a great astronomer, immediately to me, at least the name comes is a Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit. I haven't come across that. That is not to say it doesn't exist. Somebody may be there, but I don't know of a greater astronomer than Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit. Okay, from last 200 years to our times. Okay, I will say this about Dr. Vartak. And if Indian government listens to this somehow, the talk, I would request them, but I would rather encourage them, because I will leave it to their intellect to go through the books of Dr. Vartak and acknowledge his contribution to India and to Indian civilization. The point I want to make it is, as far as the Indian civilizational research landscape is concerned, and this is not in any way to limit to the dating of Mahabharata or dating of Ramayana or dating business, even beyond that, I know of no one in the last 100 years who were come anywhere close, including myself, anywhere close to the brilliance and to the phenomenal work that Dr. P.V. Vartak has done. Now, why do I say that? Because people, when I'm saying Dr. Vartak went wrong here, people just confuse. Wrong meaning I'm considering him inferior. No. Do you know what Professor Wheeler of Princeton, who was a professor to Richard Feynman, used to say? Our job is to make the mistakes as fast as we can. Okay, our problem is to make the mistakes as fast as we can, which means to say, he's trying to say, we should make mistakes as fast as we can so that we can fix them. Kshina dosha, we can remove the error. But even to make mistakes fast is not easy. It requires tapashcharya. That is one problem. And many of the folks in the Indic space that I'm aware of are so fearful that they will not make strong assertions. Now, there are others who will make a totally fake assertions, okay, and fool the people. But then there are others who may be capable, but they will dare not make assertions. Why? Because they're so damn worried about being wrong. A great educational experts, I'm not getting his name, Robertson, I think, or Richardson, his last name. in LA area, like close to your area. He says, I'm not saying that you have to be wrong in order to make revolutions. But if you're not willing to be wrong, you cannot make revolutions. Dr. P.V. Vartak was a revolutionary par excellence in the space, in this space. Just tremendous work. I cannot think of anyone, bar none, no exceptions, that person will come anywhere close to the contribution that Dr. P.V. Vartak made. He passed away in 2019. Neither Maharashtra government nor Indian government has taken any notice of it. Okay. And of course, the blame also goes to the folks, politicians or otherwise of Maharashtra, because most of our Dr. Vartak's works were in Marathi initially written, at least. Now they have been translated. So that may be one reason why they did not reach others. But what about the folks from Maharashtra, the politicians or even otherwise? Why did they not take? Because they didn't give a damn. They are incapable of understanding possibly, or they're too busy with whatever they do. But that is just on a Vartak. So when I'm saying Vartak's explanation is neither consistent nor do they match, this is not done in any derogatory sense. That is the beauty of Adhyatma. That is the beauty of modern science. Only in science you will say that somebody comes and says, oh, I propose that theory and I am wrong. It doesn't happen as often as it should in science, unfortunately, because people have their egos and whatnot. But if it happens in science. It happens in Adhyatma. We have a term, Adityaji, called Guru Shisha Parajay, meaning Guru becomes happy when his or her Shishya, a disciple, defeats him. Defeats in the sense of goes beyond what the Guru has accomplished. And I'll give you one anecdote, and actually we can stop on that because otherwise it will be too long. Next time we will do the other half, and I'll tell you what we'll do next time. So let me stop with that anecdote. So here the problem is, and we'll go through this beautiful Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayanaha, how the path of Satya, when you are following this right recipe of Samyak Jnana and Brahmacharya and hard work, tapasya, efforts, how it gets wider and wider. This is getting wider. We just know where Mahabharata war happened or where it definitely not happened. That's all we have, which is a Satya because of Arundhati Vasishtha observation. Then we did a Kartik Masaya. Now, what did Kartik Masaya do? It further supported the claim of 5561 BCE, but it also eliminated all the other Mahabharata claims whenever a person claims that the first day of Mahabharata war was not Amavasya. So if you don't consider first day of Mahabharata war as the Kartik Amavasya, your claim is false. Instantaneously, we can say it's false. Okay, that's the beauty of that evidence. So I will go through. So we will go through this. P5, we have to go P10, and maybe more. I don't know. Yeah, P11. So we will not able to do a good justice to it. But the last point that I mentioned here, that Vartak claim planetary evidence, which is factually correct, but not the way he provided explanation in 70s and 80s. That's my point. So it becomes even a more surprising thing that the Vartak still reach the right year, as I'm going to show you as I take you through this journey. So the Vartak's explanations for planetary descriptions are neither consistent nor do they match for 5561 BC. So that was a problem. So I'm saying now I'm sitting in front of 30 plus just a planetary, and then if you add the phases and positions of the moon, 50 plus these descriptions, 60 plus possibly, whatever the number is. And do they match for 5561 BC? That is a bigger complex problem, P4. And how I solved it and how it supports 5561 BC, what new problems of higher complexity it raises, we'll discuss that later. But something I want to tell you about Dr. Vartak, because I discussed that. Guru Shishya Parajay Adityaji is what I mentioned. I consider him a guru in this particular field. And as I said, bar none, I know of no individual living or dead of last 100 years who comes anywhere close when it comes to original research, revolutionary research, daring research, which is what that Richardson or Robertson refers to, that can come anywhere close in the space of Indian civilization to what Dr. P.V. Vartak has done. Okay, and his active time, I would say, is sometime from say mid 60s, like the research work I'm talking, from mid 60s to possibly mid 90s, and he continued to research until his last day in 2019. But as you age, your faculties, it becomes difficult. Those of the people who might be listening, and who send me emails saying, hey, once I retire, I'm going to take to this, good luck. Or rather tough luck. No, you are in a fool's paradise. If you want to do something and you really damn mean it, start it now, no matter what your circumstances are, how poor, how tough, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, you're not made for this. Don't waste your time. Okay, do something more meaningful, that is capable, that you may be capable of. Okay, don't fool yourself. Anyways, the one thing I want to say, Guru Shishya Parajay, and we can stop on that, Aditya, is this. I have met Dr. Vartak multiple times, but let me recall in 2012, I met him at his place in Pune. And that is the time, the reason I'm picking that is the time when I had published my book on Mahabharata, when did the Mahabharata war happen, and solve this toughest unsolved problem of the Arundhati Vasishtha observation, and showed that, that is the time interval. And 5561 falls into that. So that was a great news, at least I wanted to give to Dr. Vartak. We used to communicate through email, phone calls, but this was meeting in person. Now, at that time, I have not published the historic Rama or 12,209 BCE book, that I published in 2014. So while we were discussing, so we discussed some of the issues, and if we get time, we will discuss even some of the objections he raised about my work, my dates, and it will be very interesting. So when you raise an objection, just like we said, asking a question, but in the right method, right attitude, tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Okay, in the same fashion, when you ask, you should ask the questions in such a way that it should lead to the growth of knowledge. Okay, satyena pantha vitato devayanaha. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay, so he asked me, so we discussed this, and then I told him, so doctor, I said, I have also, by the way, come up with the date of Ramayana, my work, but not published yet. And immediately he asked, I think my good friend was there with me. My daughter was also with me. And so he asked, oh, what is your date? Now, the reason is because Dr. Vartak had also made an attempt in dating Ramayana. And the date he proposed is like around 7,300 BCE, 7,300 BCE. That other book, Vastav Ramayana, is also a book par excellence. Now, I'm saying 7,300 BC is wrong. Okay, but I can say still the book where it is discussed with a great elaboration is a phenomenal book to read. It's a classic. It belongs on the bookshelf of any intellectual Kshatriya. It is that great book, Vastav Ramayana, beautiful book. So he said, yeah. So tell me, what is your date? And of course, I told him the date, and I said, my date. By the way, doctor, I said my date is removed from yours by 5,000 years. His date is 7,300 BC. That is what he claimed. I showed that Valmiki Ramayana, the Ramayana, did happen in 12,013 millennium BC, 12,209 BC. So I told him the date. Do you know what was his reaction, Adityaji? I am to a researcher, a great researcher, okay, respected by many, those who knew him. Those who were ignorant, of course, there is no question of respecting or doing anything. Many in Pune made a fun of him, because they didn't realize it is because their lack of intellect, but they made fun of him. He was a very daring, courageous individual. But when I am telling to this individual who has spent 40 years doing this is 2012 I'm talking, and I'm saying my date is removed from yours by 5,000 years. You are saying 7,300 BCE. I'm saying that's wrong. The correct date is 12,209 BCE. No, we didn't have a time to go through the detailed discussion because I had not written a book until then. By the way, my book, The Historic Rama, is dedicated to Dr. P.V. Vartak. Okay. Now, not because of what I'm going to tell you the next. Actually, in that book, I'm saying 7,300 BC is wrong. and why it is wrong. Okay, that's the point. This is how science grows. This is how the Satyena Pantha Vitato Devayana, the path of Satya also grows. Would you know what he said? We were sitting in his clinic. He was a medical doctor, so he's sitting on that side, and where the patients might sit, that's where in the chairs we are sitting. He said, "Sir, tell me your date." I said 12,209 removed from your this. He got up from his chair, came to my side. Also, we also stood up. He patted my back. He said, "Go ahead," in the sense of like Aittariya Brahmana, Charaiveti, 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 Charaiveti. Keep on walking, keep on walking, keep on walking. My best wishes are with you. This is Guru Shisha Parajay. He wasn't unhappy. Now, of course, once I publish, if he chooses, he would critique it, because critique leads to higher problems. He was not unhappy. I wish I had a video camera. We took some photos, but video camera to record this. He was ecstatic when I said his date is wrong and my date is right. Now, remember, why did he feel like that? No, some other person will come and says he thinks it's like a 1000 BC and I should feel ecstatic. No, I'll not feel ecstatic because that guy is talking nonsense. I know that. Dr. Vartak and myself, over a period of time, we have developed a relationship, but also the confidence, also the trust about our abilities, about our value system, that Dr. Vartak, even without knowing the true merit of my claim of 12,209 BC, he had that confidence that I would not be saying something in thin air. Okay, he came to my side, he patted my back, and I'm not getting his first name, Ashish Gune, my friend, he was there. So I think we always need a witness. And my daughter, no, I don't know if my daughter will remember. She was much younger that time. But there were some others, like one of his assistant was also there, and she's connected with me in the social media and whatnot. And he said, my blessings are with you. The point I'm saying is Guru Shishya Parajay. He was ecstatic. Okay. And yeah, that's what it is. Now, if you look at the relationship between the Yamunacharya, okay, and Ramanujacharya, many people who would know Ramanujacharya don't possibly know, many of them, not all of them, I'm saying, many of them may not know the name of a Yamuna Muni. Okay. Now, Yamuna Muni would be very happy to look at what Ramanujacharya did to his sampradaya, took it to a totally different level. It is like this. It is the right mindset. Okay. And what is that mindset? Samyak mindset. Samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. It is free from attachment. It is free from hate. And it is built, it is made up of a very sharp intellect. Because Nyaya Darshana says, Tat Trairasham, Raga, Dvesha, Moha, Arthantara Bhava. These are the reasons for a dosha. These are the reasons for impurities. These are the reasons for error. Attachment to something, hate for a specific thing, specific claim, specific individual, and lack of intellect, or simple language, stupidity. These are the reasons why people reach wrong conclusions, people reach errors. But a person who is trying to solve challenging problems will also end up in the errors. But the difference is he or she recognizes their errors and admit when they find it. Okay, on that I'll stop. Adityaji, let me see. I'll stop sharing here. I might have gone longer and bored you. So, back to you.
It's been a long, no, thank you. Actually, sometimes you have to complete the conversation, otherwise it doesn't happen. And when you, because of Kali Yuga memory, you lose points immediately. So glad we completed in one session. For those of you who are listening, let me know your questions by, and people have not dropped out, so it's a good presentation. And one question I have is, like, after we discuss the entire thing, now what is in the conclusion, if you want to say that how people can decipher untruth from truth in one line, what you would like to say?
One line is Pratyaksha Anumana Upamana Shabda Pramanani. That is the one line. Okay, so you have the Shabda, you have heard something, you want to figure out whether it's true or false. Pratyaksha Anumana, Bhagavad Puran says, Atmano Guru Atmaiva Purushasya Visheshata. The human being's specialty is Atmano Guru Atmama, you can be your own guru. That is not to stop you from taking other gurus. Purushasya Visheshata, because you asked me for one line, I already went 5 lines. Yat pratyaksha anumana bhyam shreyo savano vindate. Pratyaksha anumana, that's modern science in 2 words. You can reach the truth.
And yeah, because the biggest casualty today with all the media narratives is the truth. It's not your viewpoint. Sometimes what happens is, if the 1,000 people speak a lie, and the people, if you see the responses on Facebook and other places, are just repeating the lies because they are not doing their own research.
Correct.
And without analyzing anything. And in the world of over information, it is important to actually find out, first of all, who is speaking, why is he speaking, when is he speaking, and for what purpose he is speaking.
Motivation. What is his motivation?
Motivation. So everyone has to become the crime patrol. They will watch crime patrol more seriously. And first of all, you need to doubt everything. And then you start beginning analyzing, including, and that's how you come to the truth. Otherwise, it's so difficult. That's why I chose an easy route. If it doesn't match the logic of Bhagavad-gita, it's false, fake news.
Yeah.
And it is not for ultimate good of people. And if you want to understand today's politics, I really advise you read the 16th chapter of Gita, first 25 shloka. You will understand today's politics completely. You don't have to hear any analysis after that.
I would agree. I second that, Adityaji. Absolutely. 16th chapter, first 25 shloka, Daivi Pravrutti, Asuri Pravrutti. Yeah, absolutely.
And you will find out whether the nation is truthful or the politician is truthful, depending on what actions and what is the result of those actions.
Correct. And don't forget to apply it to yourself. Analyze yourself against those first 25 shloka.
Most important. Don't do only the first shloka. First 2 shloka avoid. Rest you have to follow. Because the first 2 will make you feel very proud, because you will assume that everything is right in you. So thank you so much, Nilesh ji, as usual, very interesting and very informative. And for all the viewers, do comment. Let us know your feedback. Your comments are very important. Namaste.
Namaskar.